Hi, this is Mash Rundown. If you enjoy our content, subscribe and hit the like button down below. It really helps out.
Today we're going to be doing our movie review for Antebellum. Antebellum was released in 2020. It's directed by Gerard and Christopher Renz. It stars Janelle, Monáe, Jena, Malone, and Gabourey Sidibe.
One of the things that bugged me with the lineup is the trailer said made by the producer of Get Out, when in fact it was not done by Peel, it was done by one of the other producers.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was a little bit of false advertising, because they could have said made by a producer, because when you talk about the producer, you're talking about Peel. Although I must admit that it did have, or at least the trailer did have, similar vibes to the Get Out trailer. But still.
A little misleading.
Yeah. So the story centers around a successful writer and sociologist, Veronica, and how she gets trapped in this harsh reality. And really, it looks at her journey through this reality. So what got her there, and, does she get out? So looking at the themes, I think the themes are very light, even though the whole point of the movie was supposed to be some heavy, hard realities. And yes, the first 39 minutes of the movie was that heavy, harsh realities that Black people experienced during the Civil War in America. So the theme was racism in a lot of it, and slavery. I just didn't feel like the theme translated very well past those first 39 minutes, because they didn't tie it up very nicely, which led me feeling like they were just having these harsh, difficult topics looked at, but without purpose, without, giving us a message, without giving us some education about what actually happened. It was almost as if they were doing terrible things just to entertain us instead of inform us. And then another thing we could say is feminism, because there were very strong women leads in this movie, which was really nice to see, but I still feel like they failed with that as well. Veronica does feminism quite well, but I feel like Bridget was way over the top, and she's just supposed to be some relationship expert, and I don't know. It was just not realistic to me.
She fell into these stereotypes of feminists, these harsh, unlikable,
bitchy
feminists, and it detracts from the message completely.
Feminism is not about putting people down, it's about uplifting people. And I felt like the character was constantly putting people down instead of uplifting people to where she is. And even in the one monologue piece where she's talking to the guy who sent her a drink, like, women deserve champagne, that was a little entitled, a little Karenish.
Yes, especially considering it's not the worst thing to do to send someone a drink. You've interested me, I want to spark up a conversation with you. It takes a lot of guts to send a drink to one person in a group of women. In general, I think that was very harsh and mean.
I think that maybe my outlook on this movie may seem a little harsh, but I come from a background in psychology, just felt very flat for me most of the time. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I also have a master's in diversity studies, so I look at race, culture, religion, feminism, and all those things. And just for the big themes of the movie, I felt like, were there any people with actual sociology, psychology, diversity study degrees and qualifications helping out the directors and the writers? Because yes, anyone can be an activist, and I applaud everyone who are activists, because we need everyone to be an activist. But I think this movie was trying to portray itself as an academic activist, and that bothered me, because I feel like they missed the themes. I feel like they missed out on actually pulling people in and really awakening people and introducing them to the pains of the past, because it's still happening. It's not as overt as what it was during the Civil War. Mostly there's a lot more subtle, covert things that are happening, and I would have liked them to have contrasted that a little bit more during the storyline, because they could have been a lot more overt in the Civil War era and then been a little bit more covert in today. And that would have paralleled how racism has changed but has not actually gone away. Even though I do feel like they try to do that sometimes in the movie, with the waiter and with the debate on the laptop in the beginning, but it felt very flat because I don't think they portrayed the covert racism well, which was weird because a lot of the covert racism is behind the police shootings that are happening in America, a lot of the other forms of brutality that's happening worldwide in terms of racism and feminism, and I just feel like it missed the mark. So, yeah. I'm not sure if I'm coming across as a bit harsh, because I feel like a lot of people have been and lived through a lot of racist or patriarchal or hegemonic discrimination, yeah. And you've lived through it, so you know a lot about it. But just because this movie was going from such an academic viewpoint, I feel like they should have done more, because it is spoken about slightly differently in academics. And they try to portray Veronica as this academic activist, and I feel like they just missed the mark.
And Bridget is also portrayed as the expert in public relations and in
Relationship
manager and that. So
she made my skin crawl. I would never speak to someone like that. Inside or outside my profession. So let's go into the good before we go more into, I suppose, the bad. And unfortunately, what I liked about the movie wasn't very much. I really appreciated the costume design.
The costume design was really good.
It was beautiful. I loved the bright colors that came through. It kind of contrasted at times the tone of what was happening, because you have these beautiful bright colors, but it's really difficult topics. And I think the clothing really did show a strong, powerful woman and really did show good period pieces. So I loved that.
Also, I like that the clothing for the Civil War people, we never saw them in anything other than that. So they became this one mass of faceless nobodies, basically, that was oppressing these people. So the focus was not on them. The focus was on the individuality of the people they had captured, as opposed to the oppressors, which I like that contrast as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you could see it contrasted in the colours, because the people that were captured and being oppressed wore very bright colours, quite often like the first shot with that woman in the beautiful green dress.
Yes.
Whereas the people who were oppressing wore like very muted blues.
It was the drab Civil War outfit, so it's not bright, vibrant outfit. It's very muted.
Yeah.
Particularly the very first scene we get, it's these long, wide shots, it's this long, continuous take. It was done very, very well. It really used the area very effectively. You get a full feel of exactly what's happening, where we are, and almost what's to come.
And I also liked the little hints that they threw in the shots, because if you pay attention,
Yes.
the whole plot of the movie is given away within the first minute. And it's with one of the flags. And I'll say no more. So if you know your Civil War history, you'll pick it up quite quickly. William did, and I was very surprised, because obviously we're not American. And I didn't expect him to know that. I didn't. So it was pretty cool. And there's other little knick-knack things that are thrown in throughout, like certain pictures. The theme of the butterfly is there throughout as well. But they don't really talk much about what the butterfly is supposed to symbolize. So I don't know if it was really a fully developed theme. They could have done that a lot better. And it would have actually been a beautiful theme of maybe rebirth and freedom. But I felt like they showed the imagery, but they didn't tie it in very well. And I know some people said that you need to watch a movie twice to catch all of these little things. I don't think so. I think you just watch the movie and you pick it up naturally. I did, at least. Except for the flag that I missed. But everything else, pretty much one view was enough. It wasn't really a complicated storyline, so I didn't feel like it was worth the second watch.
I agree with you 100%.
And then the score was also really good throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I liked the music, and yeah.
It did fit with the feel and the mood of the movie. It wasn't a jarring experience like some movies we've seen. The one other thing I really liked is the final use of the crematorium at the end. I thought that was well played, and I thoroughly enjoyed that.
It was very ironic.
Yes.
That takes us to the bad. And unfortunately, there was just so much in this movie that I just couldn't get behind. With my academic qualifications, I think that they fell very short
Yeah.
with explaining the character, because she has a degree in something, then she has a master's in sociology, and then they were trying to be very smart and give her a doctorate in Civil War history to kind of tie in with the plotline of the movie. I think they were just trying to be clever, and although that is not an impossible qualification to have, it's just very unlikely, because why wouldn't she just do her doctorate in sociology? And I also was bugged very much about the book she had on her bookshelf. She was missing some really important authors like Bell Hooks, Derek Hook, Frans Fanon. That would have been much more interesting books for her to have as well, considering her character and what her character was fighting for. So the books were they could have really done more with that. And I know most people wouldn't even have noticed what books were there, but it bugged me because I noticed. And I also really didn't like her, I don't know if it was exposition almost, where she was giving speeches about the topics and having debates on the laptop. I didn't enjoy most of what was happening because it felt very overacted. And that's strange to say, because people in this field, and obviously I spend a lot of time with people in this field, I'm one of them, they're very passionate, and that passion comes through, but not in an overacted way. It's just so different. And I felt like she just felt so short, like they didn't have someone really clued up on who was writing the small little speeches and things that they were doing. And because it was so overacted, even the parts that were written well were meaningless and lost their whole point. So I hated that.
To me, it often felt like, cool, let's get in the buzzwords, and very little actual meaning behind it, because anybody can sound like they're in the field if I know, cool, I need to say this, then this, then this, then this, and cool, I'm done.
Yeah, you say diversity, intersectionality, you know, a lot of these buzzwords that people like using, and now suddenly what I'm saying is meaningful, but I mean, to me it wasn't really meaningful. And I tend to avoid using too many buzzwords, because if people don't understand what I'm saying, then what's the point of saying it? And then once again, like I spoke about in the themes a little bit, the relationship expert drove me crazy. I cannot imagine a relationship expert speaking to people the way that Bridget spoke to. And she was also just like an aside character. I don't know why she was even there. Like the one scene where she comes in the room and she gives Veronica a cup of coffee. Like, what was the point of that scene? Oh, look, this very successful person has a friend. Okay, and?
That literally was the point of it. Let's introduce friends, let's introduce connections, and let's do a little bit of exposition, because that's all that was there for. It wasn't really integral to the story.
My least favorite scenes of the movie was when Bridget was in the movie. She just also overacted, and it's a pity because she's such a good actress. I don't understand why it was necessary to be so over the top. So it fell very flat for me, and it bugs me because they were trying to portray academic people, and it definitely did not come across that way. And that whole second act was supposed to be like girl power, but it was just, why was it even in the movie? I didn't get it. I know women can be strong and powerful as well, and I know that's what they wanted to portray, but they just did it in such a poor way that it became overly obvious that that's what they were doing, instead of actually taking us along with the journey and using that narrative to develop the character and the characters. So I was very disappointed with that. It just felt like it wasn't well researched from an academic point of view. I'm not saying from a non-academic point of view, but from an academic point of view. Because it also felt like, they knew, like you were saying, the buzzwords, and they knew some things about psychology, but I don't think they actually understood what they were talking about. It was all surface level. And
from a non-academic point of view, I can see what they were going for. Like, I could see the girl power, the let's fight against this racist hotel, this racist restaurant. I don't know what the problem she had with the guy is, actually. I can't even see that. Feminism, I'm going to assume that that's what they wanted. But I can see what they were going for, but they missed it so far from the mark. And they just came off as... Even she complains about the seating in the restaurant. It's a busy restaurant. There's a table open for 5 people or so, and there's a table open for 3. They took them to the table open for 3. She wasn't happy with there because you're throwing the people of colour in the corner. There were people of colour all over the restaurant eating in the middle of... Then it wasn't just them. And they moved them across when they asked to be moved. Like, it wasn't a big fight, or no, don't take the table open for 5 people when we could be helping in this busy restaurant. Sure. I don't get it. I really don't.
I think it would have been more effective if they had just white people throughout the restaurant and had moved them to the side. Then you could have maybe argued it was a bit racist, but that wasn't the case. So I don't know. I didn't understand the point of that. It was, that whole second act was very pointless to me, and I think that's where the story had the biggest problem.
Yes.
The first act was a bit too long and dragged out. I feel like they could have been a little bit more succinct.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they didn't draw everything up nicely throughout the movie. It became, pain and torture and slavery and suffering just for the sake of entertainment, which I didn't like. And then when we get to the third act, it was okay, but it fell short because, number one, the colour was weird.
Colour was weird.
They had a very blue hue trying to imitate dawn.
Yeah.
Which meant that a lot of the movements and stuff were difficult to follow because they were on horses. So it could have been cool, but I don't really feel like it was very cool. The end wasn't very satisfying because they didn't take it and actually run with it, because the bad guy gives this long exposition at the end, but they don't fully go out. Because they had the opportunity to be racist and mean and really bad, but it wasn't really. Yeah. They missed an opportunity to tie it in that final scene.
Also, my biggest complaint with the movie is it was billed as having this big twist. It was, the trailer gave us so much and nothing. The twist was not good. It was very blatant. The trailer promised us this fantastical, deep, meaningful movie, and this was flat and effortless. I just disappointed because of the expectations.
I didn't mind the twist so much in itself. It was fine for me, and I think that it did help it feel more horror-ish in some ways. I just felt like they could have done it better, because the trailer promised something that the movie didn't give us. It's like they shot scenes for the trailer and then kind of how are we going to put this in the movie and make it make sense? Like the little girl in the trailer looks like creepy Stephen King kind of vibe, Silent Hill. And at the end of the day, it was just like a random encounter, really. It was just...
It's another one of those encounters that didn't make sense. It wasn't part of any plot, really. It wasn't part of any schemes or intimidation tactics or anything. It really just was... It looked good in the trailer, so we have to have it in the movie kind of thing. Or even if they just shot it for the movie, it looks kind of cool. We'll have this... And it wasn't.
I think it was a poor attempt at a misdirect for the plot and the twist of the movie. When, why was it necessary? The twist of the movie was evident within the first minute of the movie itself, and there were lots of hints throughout that you could have picked up on and not been very surprised. So I don't think they needed to try and misdirect all that much. So, I was expecting and promised this awesome sci-fi type of movie, sci-fi horror, but what I got was a normal racist Civil War piece, and that's fine. And those movies can be important. I just don't feel like this one was. It probably would have been touch better had they not had so much misdirection in the trailer. I think less people would have been angry at it.
I think coming in with a lower expectation, you would have, this movie's not bad. It's a decent movie. It's okay.
Yeah.
But coming in with, oh wow, it's going to be up to Get Out standards. It's going to have this massive twist in it. It's going to be this deep, complex movie. You sit and you go, oh well, I'm disappointed with everything there.
Yeah. I think I've alluded to the next bad thing a little bit throughout, is the character development was so bad.
Yeah.
It needed to build so much more, and I feel like that's what they missed doing in the second act. That's what they should have done, and they didn't do it. Because I wanted to care more about the characters. I wanted to understand the characters more, and instead it just like, okay, I kind of like the main character, but that's about it.
Yeah. Even the main character's growth was minimal at best.
Yeah.
And that's sad, because there could have been a lot of growth there.
Could have been so much more. So my overall thought, the movie was really disappointing. I felt like it was not a call to action. It wasn't educational. Rather, it used these difficult topics such as slavery and rape for entertainment purposes. And I was really disappointed in that, because it could have been a really good movie.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. It could have been so much more. Even the title of it, Antebellum, it's before the war. So I could have shown the contrast between before the war. We're not heading into a war, but we're heading into social change at the moment. And like there are going to be parallels between the two, and we could have shown so much there, and shown how the overt racism in the past and the covert racism now is not that far apart, and how we needed to address it back then, and that's why the Civil War came about, and we need to address this now, and that's why social change is coming about. Like,
Yeah.
so much more.
It was just overall really, like I said, disappointing. My rating is a 2.
And I'd give it a 4.
So overall our rating is a 3. A very disappointing 3.
Yeah.
Who would like watching this movie? I honestly don't know. I don't recommend anyone watching it. It was just very disappointing.
Maybe if you haven't seen the trailer and you're going with absolutely no expectations, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, just... The acts were not coherent enough. There wasn't enough content. They stretched it out too much because there wasn't enough content. And I know it sounds weird because there was too much of a certain thing, but overall it just wasn't enough for a proper movie. They just didn't have enough. What did you guys think about Antebellum if you've seen it? Let us know in the comments down below. Bye.